Onya miku okro okro brabe tnami mikume kano nami nao omi nawo omi nibio honya miku
I'll be speaking briefly on population growth mismanagement and national security threat. Population growth mismanagement and national security threat. Okay. All right. So basically, we'll look at these 4 areas. The fact that the population is growing and that the population is not a problem at all. The population growth is not a problem at all. But the fact that it's being mismanaged is the problem. And then what the problems are and how we can deal with the issues that are attached to it. So, I mean, when we talk about population growth, I mean, population is population, a totality of a group of entities, totality. So, when we talk about population, that's what we are looking at. And in the sense of us humans, we are talking about every single person in Ghana, the population, a totality of all. But when we talk about population growth, there are 3 key things that are very, very essential: fertility, mortality, and migration. Fertility as the means of production, mortality as the means of exit, and then migration as a means of balance. So it has that inflow and outflow. So like the fertility as a means of inflow and as the outflow, migration that both effect. When we see inflow at the same time. But I want to focus on fertility today because today is International Women's Day. And I want us to give a round of applause to all our women here. A big one to them. A big one and a big one to them. All right. So, yema menom yenu no ma yema mutirin kwa erade nkoso ama mo ahoden na ne mo yema yen no mo nyema ne mbro so hallelujah. A special one to Mama. You are not watching, but to you. All right. Okay. So those who are yet to place a call to their Mama, no, please do that quickly. And then those who are yet to do that to, I mean, the youth coordinator, those who are not yet married to your girlfriends, do that. Call them. So, Portia, no one has called you this morning. Not even Asante. Oh, why did you do that? Okay. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Portia, a nice international day to you, okay? Oh. All right. So, to begin with, the population is growing. And if you look at the chart that we have there, since 1891, where the first census was done, where we had about 764,000 people, now we are about 32 million. That is about 130 years. Ghana has grown that much. And so the population is going up and up and up, and it will continue to grow. And I want us to take note of this. The fact that the population is growing, we are also seeing a decline in fertility. So the total fertility rate is more of like, if you take a woman's reproductive age from age 15 to 49, if all things being equal, it is expected that she would have given birth to a certain number of children. So in 1988, the total fertility rate was at 6.4, which means that if you take the average for the reproductive age of every woman, she's likely to give birth to about 6 people. Now, the total fertility rate is 3.1, which means that the population, the total fertility has declined. In essence, when you are seeing a decline, the expectation is that there will be a decline elsewhere. But that is not exactly what we see now. So the population is growing, but fertility is declining. I want us to just take note of that. So the population as it is growing is so much important for us. Most people think that when the population is growing, then there is a problem. In places where, especially in developed areas where there are policies that are in place to take care of population growth, they see the benefits. But in our section where we don't see policies, social policies, and other economic policies to augment the growth, that is where we see it as a problem. But like I said, population growth is not a problem. First and foremost, God himself supports population growth. Yes. So he says that, man, be fruitful and what? And multiply. Other versions, he says that what? Increase in number. Make sure that you have more children. So it means that God supports population growth. There's no problem with that. We must grow. The second thing is that there is what we call the demographic dividend, and I'll explain that. That also supports population growth. When we look at the demographic dividend, it does not necessarily talk about population growing. It even talks about declining fertility, like I earlier on hinted on. However, it emphasizes the fact that when the population, there's a good number of population, there's a possibility of reaping the effect of that. So the demographic dividend is the accelerated economic growth that may result as a result of one, a country's mortality, so a decline in a country's mortality. Secondly, a decline in fertility and the subsequent change in the age structure of the population. So what it means is that the mortality comes down. Mortality comes down at all costs. Mortality comes down. And as mortality is coming down, that means healthcare has improved. All other things that will keep good health are all maintained. And that means that mortality comes down. Then you reduce the population, the fertility. You are able to sustain a good number of people in the population. All right? So when that one happens, then there's the possibility that the age structure is going to change. Now, in the past, and we'll look at how the age structure is now for Ghana, the base was more of like a large one. We had more children as compared to now that is gradually shrinking. But in the past, there were more children, and within the middle, I'll call it maybe the middle belt, where we have the 15 getting to about 34 years, was a bit shrinking. But now it is bulging, all right? So that is the age structure. And the fact that when that age structure changes, and we have the middle part making that bald area, it means that we are going to have more working force. And when the working force is huge, then we can reap the dividends, because they are going to be in employment and they will work and they will see all the necessary benefits as a result of that. So he says that with fewer births each year, a country's young dependent population grows smaller. Dependent population, the dependent population is from 0 to 14 years and then 65 years and above. So that population begins to grow smaller in relation to the working population, like I said, the one in the middle. When that one grows bigger, then we are able to see the benefits of it, because they are there. Those who can work and work and work, we have more and more of them with that. But we can see the dividend so well if there are right social and economic policies that are developed or invested so as to see its benefits. Let's look at Ghana's age structure. What we are seeing now, according to the 2021 Population and Housing Census report, what we are seeing now is that Ghana is gradually transitioning from the past, where there was a domination of a 0 to 14-year age group, and now to what? A younger age group. So now we are having smaller number population for children. And as we saw from the decline in TFR from 6 to now 3.1, actually proves it, that Yenambana for children, that is declining. And as a result, the proportion of children has declined, but the proportion for young people have increased. In population studies, we call this population boom. We have had more people who are in the working force. And it means we must benefit from that. We must benefit from that. The fact that we have more people in the working force, we must see the benefits of that. So according to the report, 6 out of 10 people are within this region of, let me say, the hard-working people, about 15 to 64 years. There are 60% of them. We have that number here. This is the number that we have. This is not the number that is employed. This is the number that we have. So the working force. So if we take about 10 people in Ghana, 6 of them are active, who should be at work, who should be doing something for us to see the dividend. And we have what we call the age dependency ratio. So what it means is that those in the dependency regions, the 0 to 14 years, and then the 65 and above, they are not working. They depend on the hard-working people, or those within the age, the 15 to 64 years. Now, currently, the age dependency ratio is 66, which means that if you take about 100 people who are active, 100 people of the 15 to 64 years people who are active, about 66 of them will have people depending on them, which means there are about 34 of them who will have no persons depending on them, in a way which tells us that the dependency ratio is quite high. Thankfully, it has dropped, but it is still quite high, because if you look at how the economy is coming up and all of these things, tells us that there's still more to be done. So once again, I say you should note that not all these 60% people are working. So there are implications. There are implications. If you take 100 persons and 66 of them have people depending on them, but these 100 persons, not all of them may be working, it means that they must find ways of making ends meet. So they will do galamsey when they don't have to. Instead of going into proper agriculture, and they will harvest the better things that they need to, but because there's no time, when you dig gold, and so they'll go into galamsey. All right? They will do all the other things that will bring them something, so that those who are depending on them, they can take good care of them. So there are implications, armed robbery, and all of the rest. With this in view, and I want us to look at this carefully, especially with this LGBTQI phenomenon that is coming into our country. Note, TFR is declining. Yenwu bebre. The dependency ratio is quite high, above 60%. Or let's say if you take 100 people, more than 6. That is also high. The phenomenon of LGBT has great implications on the birth rate in Ghana. What we are saying is that apart from the TFR coming down, we are not going to have more people giving birth. So, the 0 to 14 years that is already shrinking will do what? Continue to shrink. All right. What it means is that the dependency ratio in a way may be coming down. But over a period of time, think about what the implications will be. Over a period of time, think about the implications. So for us, when we are talking about advocacy, it's something we must not joke about at all, especially on this particular issue. So looking at population growth as a national security threat is not only about the numbers that are growing, but even some of these phenomena, like the LGBTQI, is something that for us as a church, and even as a country, we must not take it lightly at all. And I think that this one has a striking effect on the population growth and the security issues that we have in Ghana. This particular morning, I want to briefly talk about teenage pregnancy and the fact that we are youth, all right? And what we are doing is a youth in peace initiative project, and that's why I wanted to zero in on this. Still a population matter. Still a population matter. Now, in this year, somewhere February, the Joy News reported that about 10.7% of teenagers aged 15 to 19 years got pregnant last year, 2022. 10. 10 means 1 out of 10. When you say it that way, it may seem so insignificant. So far, dear 10, that's a bakope, sebi, enya, senyehe. But one, in terms of population, looking at the numbers, that represents 102,000 teenagers that got pregnant last year. 102,000 teenagers. These ones are teenagers, 15 to 19 years, that got pregnant. Okay. And this one was even 1% higher than 2021. So it means that the issues are there, and we must focus on it. This was high for the Northeast, the Upper West, and the OT regions. And the challenges were that because of lack of education, not employment, opportunities, and poverty, all these things have come up. And I'm thinking, and I'm sure you're also thinking, how is teenage pregnancy a threat to our security? And we can talk about all of these things. You see, when these young ones get pregnant, the risk that comes to them is very high. The fact that physically, or if you look at their physique, they may not be strong enough to give birth, safe delivery. It's likely that they will have challenges there. They're likely that they will have complications. It's likely that they will have low birth, and those things have implications for health and all of those things. So it's important that we need to focus on that. Aside that 10%, more than 7,000 abortions for just these teenagers were reported last year. And in places like Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa, where there's low middle income and all of that, they will just drink malt with broken bottles. They don't use safe methods for abortion. So the statistics was not given, but imagine these 7,000. How many of them survived? Remember that we've talked about the 15 to 64 year group who are the working force. 15 to 19 are like the early part. If we are going to have about 7,000 of these people having abortion, which will put a high risk on their lives, a high risk on the children that they are going to have or whatever, then it means that we are going to lose our working force. I want us to think about this national security threat in that light. Not necessarily the fact that armed robbery is up there and all. I want us to think about it in that light. The fact that when we lose the working force, it also has great implications for us. So what it means is that 50% of pregnancies among these young ones are unintended. Enjoyment, keke. And then it comes out with something for them. And then they do these things not in a safe manner. But looking at the demographic transition, demographic dividend that we looked at, the fact that the workforce is high, we can reap the benefits. We can reap the benefits. And the benefits we can, starting from how we lower births. Remember that the demographic transition can thrive when mortality declines, and also fertility declines. But it declines substantially in the sense that we are still going to have the workforce in place. So intentionally, we can do something so that we can reap the benefits. But before we look at that, the Ghana Demographic and Health Survey and for 2008 and 2014 gives us the at first birth for all women between 25 to 49 years as 20 years and then 21 years. So it means that if you take, so in 2008, or by the time they did the Demographic and Health Survey, if you take women from age 25 to 49, when you ask them when was the first time you gave birth, the average age was 20 years. Not just say, well, one term. In 2014, it has delayed a little bit to 21 years. Okay? The current one is the 2014. So there isn't a recent one that we can refer to know what the where it has reached now. But I mean, taking this alone, and if we are imagining that it is declining, then it's likely it is increasing. Then it's likely that the age at which people are giving birth is what? Increasing. Probably because of what? Education. They take time to go to school and all of that. And so the point is that when we intentionally delay the age at first birth, we are likely to also reap the dividend, because we are going to still gradually reduce the base and still maintain the bulge. That is the working age group that can work hard for us. All right. The other thing is that we can also delay the age at first marriage. The 2008 DHS said that 1/3 of all women at that time had been married by the age of 18 years. 1/3 of all women. And these ones were high for the northern parts and all the other areas. So it tells us that Yefamia Miensa Obakon got married before age what? 18. And the DHS again gives us that the age at first marriage was what? 19 years and 20 years for the other two that we have looked at, telling us that the age at marriage is also a bit low, but in a way it has what? Increased. It means that people are getting married quite later. And once again, if we are assuming that that is what is happening, by now it means that the age at which women are getting married is gradually increasing, which in a way is a good thing for us. So what we are saying is that, saying at this point is that we can reap the benefits so well if we intentionally do some of these things. But the question is, for us as a church, how do we put this in check? For instance, take it that you want to organize sex education and talk about family planning and all of those things. And recently there are people who are even calling for, and we even read from other places, that they give their children contraceptive, they give them condom and all of that, so that they won't destroy themselves, in the sense that they will not become pregnant. All right? Because these days the younger ones are more sexually active. So they think about some of these things. The question is that for us as a church, and even as an osofo, will you give a condom to your child that ukwe bohum? Will you do that? These are some of the things. And so because of that, we shy away from that and we will not talk about contraceptives, the use of contraceptives. Anyway, that just came to pass by and we'll talk about that more. So the threats are a lot, and I just listed two of them because we are looking at teenage pregnancy. High school dropout. Now take the free SHS that we have. If somebody becomes pregnant and is not encouraged, these days we even see them with their bellies in school. In JHS, we see them there. Okay, if somebody becomes pregnant at that time and does not, or is not so much strong enough to go with the belly to school, it means that we are going to have high school dropouts. And then the dependency ratio is also going to be a problem for us. Galamsey, drug abuse, armed robbery, and all of that. So what can we do? And I'll be ending on this. What can we do? We are already doing a preaching against early sex, abstinence. We are doing that. And we should continue to do that. And we should continue to do that and do that the more. But my question again will be, how intentional have we been in speaking about issues like this to the young ones? Definitely when we take what we have on the almanac and the plenty activities that we have to do, hardly will we make time to say that we are focusing on the youth and we are going to talk to them about sex education. We are going to preach about abstinence and all of that. We hardly have much time to do that. But we can intentionally do that when we begin to make time and to speak about abstinence. Another thing is that we can intensify sex education among the reproductive age group people. No, we can. I mean, sex education involves a lot. It's not only about family planning using contraceptives and all of that. We have to educate them on a lot of things on that. Then we also need to draw parents' attention to the fact that they have responsibilities. Their responsibilities. Proverbs chapter 22, verse 6. It's still potent. Train up a child in the way he should go. We need to bring parents on board. Draw their attention, their mind to it, that they need to focus on some of these things. And we also need to engage stakeholders, the assemblymen and all of that. When the Joy News came up, I decided that I was going to look at how the statistics play for where I am at a monochrome. Unfortunately, the statistics does not give details for, let me say, communities. At best, you are going to get it at the district level. Unless maybe you go all the way to Ghana Statistical Service and request that, give me for that, for blah, blah, blah. That is when you do that. And I'm thinking that each one of us at our various places with some of these issues, we can engage the assemblies, we can engage all those people there, that we can have the necessary data that informs us about some of these challenges so that we can speak to issues that relate to that. And I think that the issue of teenage pregnancy and population matter can be so much important for the Youth in Peace Initiative project. It should be something that you must consider, because we cannot only talk about peace when we say that, oh, don't fight the other person. But I mean, by drawing our minds to the fact that early sex, teenage pregnancy, and all of that have implications on how our economy will move on. And so as we have more seminars and we talk about these things, we are drawing our minds to keeping ourselves in that manner. In the sense that when the youth understand that they need to preserve themselves and also be more into education and also delay sex, delay early marriage and all of that, they know that that gives them much potential and that they can reap benefits of that, rather than at the end, it ends them up being part of one or two social vices that we or any one of them will not be happy about that. And I want to hit on one last point, and I think there are several when we discuss this, that we also educate women on the number of children that they want to have, the timing, and then the spacing. And for the Youth in Peace project, this can be some of the things you begin to talk about. You don't wait until when you get married or when it is time for counseling that the counselor will now educate you on how many children do you want to have. Even now, we can begin to talk about some of these issues the timing, the spacing. How many children can you have? At what age can you have these children? These are some of the things that I think that we can hit on to help us. So in a nutshell, what I'm saying is that population, there's no problem with population, because the more you have, if you manage it well, you can see the benefits of it. So definitely, we need to manage things and put policies in place very well for us. And if we are intentional about that, I believe strongly that we can see its benefits in our country and wherever we find ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Doc, for your inspiring presentation. Especially the last part, it has brought us home. The other one was, but this one has brought us home. God bless you for that. So we want to have an interaction with you. If you have to ask some questions for clarification, maybe you want to make an input in a way, you are most welcome. So you can show by hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Good. So start from 1. Dean.
Thank you, moderator.
Yes, sir.
I highly commend our young father and Dr. Anani for the presentation. It's very insightful. And I think you've opened our eyes to some of these things. It's good that this year we are here, and I think I will commend the director too for the planning, for bringing out some of these things so that when we go, we can play the advocacy to help our churches and the young ones in the church. But my point is, how can we, as a church, at the Presbyterian Church of Ghana, and especially within the youth bracket, learn more of this? When they have their anniversaries and conferences, can't we bring some of you people? You are their, in their same group. So can't they invite you or others to be at their conferences? So you share some of these things with them to help. It appears, I'm not trying to say that when we go to expound on scripture and other things is bad. But I think we should come down. Some of our conferences, the themes that we use should be more practical and real to our living. I do get me? Yes, the point I'm driving at. Yes. It's time we come to the level of our people. I see some of these things are too high. Some of the things that we do are too high. And like the ministers' conference, they can invite you there. You talk about some of these things. And when we go, we share with our congregants. It will do more good than what I think we are doing today. That is my observation. That is what I've observed over the years. And I think when time changes, we should also change to meet the contemporary issues. Thank you once again. Thank you, Director, for the resource persons. Thank you.
Thank you. Then we'll take the next question, question 2.
let me add my voice to the commendation and say thank you so much, Dr. Frifa, for enlightening us on issues of population. And I'm one person who also takes much interest when it comes to population and particularly with fertility. This, what you gave to us is more of the statistics from the Ghana Statistical Services. But I want to, you asked a question along the line that how do we put this in check as a church? And I want to look at the statistics of the church. When we are taking statistics, what is the interest of the church in our statistics? We are interested in knowing how many are women, how many are men, how many are children, how many are within the youth bracket who are communicants and non-communicants. Do we take interest in how many of our people are producing, the fertility aspects of our population as a church, so as to help us know how we can then manage what we have? At a research I did in one of the districts, I was actually working on infertility, because for us as a church also, most of the issues that come to us as ministers are married couples with issues of fertility who are coming for us to pray for them to have children. But then, if we want to take a particular congregation and ask how many of our population or married couples have issues with infertility, at a glance, sometimes the ministers don't know. But there are people within our churches who have these issues that we need to address. So how then do we come in? I have a concern with delaying marriage. Because the more you delay marriages, the more the fertility rate also comes down. And it gives room for infertility in married couples. And then it brings a burden on us as ministers praying for people to have children. So how do you relate to it as part of security threat? Because if my people are being married and they are not having children and they keep on, it's also a kind of security threat in a way. So how do we how do we address that? Thank you.
Number 3.
Yeah, Pacha, thank you very much. This morning I've been so much enlightened on population group mismanagement as a rare security threat. In that, I was reflecting when you were doing the presentation, and I said, wow, then this issue may even be the number one cause of all the issues that we have been called to deal with. The issue of advocacy, talk of peace. If you have a situation where the dependency rate is high for us as a nation, then the only thing we can expect is that you are going to have a lot of armed robbers, a lot of, teenage pregnancies, and a lot of, name them, galamsey and all those things. And especially where unemployment is also a huge problem for us as a nation. The only thing you can expect is that all these things that we have been battling with as advocacy areas, we are going to have them. And this morning, my brother Roger, again drew attention to the fact that the steps that we are taking, it is going to take a longer time, because this is seen as, for me, as the number one cause of all the problems that we are facing. And so, yes, of course, we need to take these things serious, what we are learning, and the issue of advocacy. We need to take it serious so that we'll double our steps in trying to, avert this issue. And again, the next one is in connection with what my sister Pat has just said. You have a population growth, and from the presentation, instead of, fertility rate, going up, it is rather declining. And you talked about dividends, something. And my fear is that if it continues this way, and now that people are also pushing for LGBTQIA++ and the rest and all that, the fertility going down, probably not near future, but in the future, are we not going to have a situation like that of the Europeans, where I am told in Germany, they now want to re-strategize so that they will get more people to, give birth, because they are realizing that their population is declining at a very fast rate, such that it's also becoming a security threat, because they are surrounded by so many other nations, the Arab countries, who are also giving birth, here and there. And so they are afraid that when something strikes, they are going to overtake them in terms of numbers. And so that's also being seen as a security. If this thing continues this way, it's not going to be another issue for us as a nation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Doug. My question is, during your presentation, you were hammering on we the youth coordinators. And I want to ask a question of it. Teenage pregnancy. So should we encourage them, or we shouldn't encourage them on family planning? My question again. When we are to champion on campaigning against teenage pregnancy, should we encourage family planning at their age level or not? Thank you.
Number 5.
Yes, Papa Moderator, thank you so much. My question is related to what my brother just asked. That is it right for we as Christians to practice the use of contraceptives? Is it right for us? If it is right, why? And if it is not, why? Thank you.
Okay. All right. Okay. I'll do my best and attempt some of them. Okay. So, thank you for the compliment. And then, Mama, your question and that of Papa Ajekum's own are related. And in terms of infertility and that of the demographic dividend. Okay. So, when I showed one of the slides, I said that God supports population growth. Yes. So he wants us to multiply. He wants us to have children. And as to how many, I don't know, but he wants us to have and fill the earth. I think that, and as on a Osofo, if I am encouraging or I am talking to a couple or whatever about children, and remember I made the point that we need to educate women on the number of children, the timing, and then the spacing. And looking at the fact that the population base has the tendency of shrinking to the barest level if nothing is done about it, what I would say to any other person is that have children. And have as many as you can, but as many as you can take care of. Have children. Have as many as you can, and as many as you can take care of. There is something that we call replacement fertility. When you go to the European areas, the best they have had now is a TFR of 2.1. 2.1 meaning that on in Nigeria and also on in Ikunu, they have replaced themselves. That's it. So that is the replacement level where other places are. And there are places where that is even below the replacement level. And that is where you see a lot of scholarships, Africa for Mumbra, Ghana for Mumbra, and all of that. All those people And that has a dimension of migration for us as well, the effects of it. And maybe at another platform, we'll look at how mortality and migration also have its own effect on population and security threats. But what I would say is that we should have in mind that if we are going to educate and say that population decline, TFR continue to decline, we are going to get to the point where we may get to the replacement level that will have implications for us, or even go below that. And so for us as a church, having in mind that God wants us to fill this earth, our advice will not be in that light that, like some of the whites, they only want to have a husband and live with children. As them, let us not talk about children. If I've married you, that is all. Most of them, that is it. And they live for how many years that they want to. For us, we believe that God says that we should be fruitful and multiply. And I think that we must do that. If you can give birth to 7, no problem. But think of the fact that will I be able to take good care of them? So I think that we must look at that dimension also. And for us, we should not leave the God factor out of it. And that comes to that aspect of the family planning and the contraceptives. And I don't know if Dr. Isaac Apia would want to make some comments on that, because I know your doctor and your issues about contraceptive. And I think that the remedy we have, or the best remedy we have as a church, is for us to preach abstinence. The best remedy for us is to preach abstinence. If you say that the condom never born, how does that influence us ethically, especially from the point that we are coming from as a church? In a way, we are saying that, oh, then how will we complain about it when other things like STDs and all of those things set in? So, to say to that point, I will say that if a professional, and I make those comments coming from the fact that, because I've studied a little bit about that, to say that if I were in the shoes of, let's say, health personnel, and I am educating you about population, I will easily say that use the contraceptives, okay? But when it comes to like the way I am dressed right now, it will be difficult for me to make those comments. The best remedy I will preach for our level is to abstain. However, we know that these people know all these contraceptives. We don't even have to educate them. They know them. So, if let's say we are in a class or in a church, we are having information, I as a minister, I can teach them about the use of contraceptives, not it, but I can educate them about it. I can educate them about the use of contraceptives, the postinol and the blah blah blah, all the other things. For head knowledge, for hand knowledge, to go and do, no. But for head knowledge, for them to know about it. All right. I don't know if I have done justice to the question, but I think that for that one, I don't know, Doc, if you want to make some comments about that. If not, that is fine. The little attempt I've made is that I think for us as Christians, and at time, and somebody has a condom and protects him or herself, he has protected him or herself about that. But you are not teaching them necessarily that go and use this, go and use this. But I think for head knowledge, you can educate them about that. And I'm saying that emergencies, so we educate them to know how to deal with emergencies and the rest. That's it. Doc, I don't know if you want to make any.
I'm not a medical officer, by the way. I'm a health economist. Yes, but it's still within my area. And what the scientists recommend is the abstinence, not only Christians, because there are a lot of complications. And research is showing that the more you promote those ones, it's like if a man sleeps with a woman and they are not married, and the first day they use the contraceptives or they use the condom, there is always a probability that by the fourth time they will not use it. Because they've become used to themselves and they've developed some trust that they may want to venture to the next level. So now what they are propagating is that, as Madam said, they are supposed to be limited for emergencies. Even they, the professionals, not we the ministers, they are even recommending emergency because they are aware that when we expand the usage, it doesn't help. So that is one. But for us, those who are Christians, we are looking at so many areas to train individuals to be able to abstain, understand certain things and the risk factors. Because what is happening is that so many things are happening at the blank side of us. And the youth of today, they have a way of doing so many things. So we only need to advise them so that those who are wayward are protected. Because we don't know what happens in the future. That those who are not wayward and they are good Christians, if they want to marry, you will end up marrying somebody who is HIV positive because he's wayward. That's the reason why we also advise that we, the Christian community, we should also be very careful how we come in. So for the wayward, fine, till he is fully convicted. Maybe for emergencies, we should recommend so that we save the life of the person. But for those who are not wayward, even if you recommend the use of condoms, it even increases the probability that they will be spoiled. For example, if a youth who is not wayward is traveling and you preach to the youth that go along with condom, as long as he's going and he knows that condom is in his bag, it even draws the mind towards those things. Oh, I have condom, I'm protected, so let me go in here. So what we are trying to say is that we can't preach the same to everybody, and that is where Ghana we are failing, because we just pick from the whites everything verbatim and we want to bring it down to the society. Finally, even if we go to a traditional setup, they have a way of educating their youth. But if you go to a typical traditional setup and we are going to talk about condom, it's also another wahala, my brother. So what we finally say is that we should know the community, we should know the environment, and we should know the level of Christianity, and we should know what we should preach to them. Thank you.
Doc, thank you.
I think you have answered all the questions. There are two questions. Okay.
Sorry, it's like I'm taking much of your time. Madam was asking a question about the age of giving birth, if we have to push it up. I think what our big brother was saying is not like we are pushing it up to a level that will create a problem. Because currently speaking, where the level that we have is not the best. It's not the best. So the advice is that the first should be around 22, 23 years instead of the 19, 20, 21 to allow the system to grow well to handle this thing. And what we also advise against is the delay, as Madam is saying. In as much as we need to move it to about late 22, 23, we also advise against by 33 years, where all things being equal, you should finish giving birth. By 33 years, you should finish giving birth. And the recommendation now is also maybe about 2.5, 3 years interval. So assuming it's 23 to 33, it's about 10 years. So it comes to another recommendation that 3 is better. But 4, if you have the means, because after 33 years, if you give birth, there is a scientific proof that it reduces the strength of the woman. And as you were rightly saying, the population the working class. If the women's strength are being reduced, it will also affect the working category. Thank you.
Yes. More questions? So, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5.
Okay, Baba, please. We have a question from Reverend Cheme, the Euro Presbytery ESR Director. 3 questions. What is the nexus between population and vulnerability assessment within the conversation that we're having? What is the nexus between population and vulnerability assessment? 2, as a church, with the statistics that we have over the years, what policy decisions do we have in place to reduce the emerging security threat? As a church, with the statistics that we have over the years, what policy decisions do we have in place to reduce the emerging security threat? The last one, can population studies and its dynamics offer us the opportunity to identify sectors for evangelistic activities? What is the direction of the church as at now?
Okay, 2.
Yeah, thank you. Doc, when you were responding to some of the questions, you made a statement that for you, you advise that you can bring forth as many as you can, provided you will be able to cater for them. You can even bring up to 7 if you can cater for them. What do you think would be the implication on policymakers, governments, in view of providing social amenities like schools, hospitals, and all that? And again, you mentioned the reap that or the benefits that we reap from population growth. And you mentioned one of the benefit that intentionally we are having the lack of these medications, how do you even call them? The vaccines that are the shortage of vaccines for measles and these child killer diseases. Can we think that, we can say that it is intentional so that we can reap the benefits from population growth?
Number 2.
Number 2.
Oh, I think it will go to Dr. Dr. Pierre.
He has not made any presentation.
Oh yeah, but
No,
he
asked him,
and then he will direct to him. Okay. You see, I don't know whether it is a scientific research that has given our reproductive ages from 23 to 33 years, as Dr. Apia said. But for all I know, our old parents were able to give children up to 10 years and above. Some people can give 10 children and above. But nothing happens. But I don't know what is happening. This time, our ladies doesn't want to give birth to even 3. They want 2. And what I'm also thinking about is, does it not going to affect our population rate in the near future? Because the reproductive age is reducing, as well as the number of children that they are giving is also reducing. Don't you think it will affect our future population growth. I think you get my question. Okay.
Thank you very much, Papa. I think what informs some of these decisions, the first of them all, is about our education. Those days, we were not looking at education. Now, at the age of 17 years, somebody is completing secondary school, 17, 18. And it's expected that 4 years university education, which is 21, 22. So one of the analysis is that let the person finish. So now, first degree education in Ghana is like a basic education. So by that age, the person has completed. Now moving on to the second one, as Papa was saying, the population. It's not about the quantity, it's not about the numbers, it's about the quality. We need the population and we need the quality. As Papa was giving it to us, now Ghana, our population is increasing, but our unemployment rate is increasing alongside, which is not helping. So let me calm down small. For example, I'm a parent, and my capacity is to be able to take care of only one child or 2 children, and I give birth to 10 children. It means that my capacity is less, so I will compromise how I will be able to take care of the children. Now the children will be aging, and they will rather become a burden to the government, a burden to us, the parent, a burden to the society. So the national resources that we're supposed to share to be able to effectively take care of the population, we have issues. So if you listen to what Papa was saying, our problem, like if you go to the European countries, the fewer proportion, they are into unemployment. In the US, mostly those who are not working are the blacks, those that they call the Akata people. Because they know that if they don't work, government will give them something. And that's the reason why they stay in there. But if you come to Ghana, a lot of people want to work, but the avenues are not there. So let the population grow, but responsibly, so that we'll make sure that by the age 22, the lady in question is resourceful somehow. So even if the gentleman who gets the lady to be pregnant, if they are not married and the gentleman is not responsible, somebody who has been able to pass through the school-going age by the age 22 years should be able to take care of the child. Thank you very much.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. Doc, my question is, why reduction in fertility? What causes the reduction in fertility? And then the other one is, of late, there are some NGOs and some European nations that are supporting youth for their right. They're called youth-friendly. They are asking for youth-friendly hospitals where they can walk straight into those hospitals. If they want to have an abortion, they have it there. These are some of the challenges that we have. So, in a way, handle that issue of walking into any hospital demanding for abortion. And they expect that that facility, because a youth-friendly facility, must do what they want. Thank you.
I think that if we do our work well in the church and even in the community as we educate them about abstinence, and then the fact that some of these things, the issues about abortion is not all that easy. Yes, you can go and have free and even have it safely. But the risk is also high because you cannot tell what the complications are. So I think that in that aspect, what we can do, if we do our work very well at the church and then in the community, as we educate the people, the possibility that we'll get more of the youth not barging into that will be very, very high. So I think that we should look at that. We must do our work very well, and that will take care of it. What causes reduction in fertility? How, in what sense, what causes? Right, right. Right. I think one of the influences is still education. In the past, most people did not go to school. Okay. And now we have more people getting to school. In the early 1990s, we heard of send your girl child to school, send your girl child to school. Some of these things have contributed to delaying the age at birth, okay, age at first birth. So, and that could also contribute to how, for that particular period, we are having that number of people in terms of the fertility coming down. I think that that is one key thing that must have an influence or has had influence on that. Yeah. And then also, thank you, Doc, for that response. And I wanted to say that we have what we call another terminology, demographic transition theory, which tells us that early in the past, or let's say prehistory, health was not that much improved in terms of how we take care of ourselves and all of that. And so death rates were high. Death rates were high. And because death rates were high, it got to a point where people will now say that mewu bebre, so that I can have more. So if you look at it, death was high. But gradually, as we improved in technology and other things, death rates were coming down. Oh, yes. So at that time where death rates were high, women were giving birth to more people. That's why you could see 20 and the rest. All right? They were giving birth to more people. Now, it is gradually coming down. All right? It's gradually coming down. And because of that and other things, the life expectancy is like the expected number of years, all things being equal for everybody, was very low. Gradually, it is increasing. Now it is about 64 for women, and theirs is higher than that of men. So with all of these in place, and as Doc was saying, it's not that we want to say that we should decline fertility so that nobody gives birth at all. But consider the fact that population is a continuum. It must continue. And so people must give birth. But however, also, like he gave an example, cut your coat according to your size. You see, if you continue reproducing, and you don't have the capacity to take care of them, the threat is that we can see easily as we have for us. Okay. Also for Chiremi, yesterday Papa Ashite said that anytime he asks the question, it's like a PhD thesis. He's saying that what is the nexus between population and vulnerability assessment. I'm going to ask what he means by vulnerability assessment, but my mind goes onto the fact that when you say vulnerability, maybe we are looking at the gender aspect of it. If I'm not right, you can let me know. So women are more vulnerable, children are more vulnerable. So when we have more women, all right, how are we also taking care of them in terms of health, in terms of education, and in terms of employment and all the other things? The 2021 population and housing census says that for those that are in the working group, the 15 to 64 years, there are more men than women. And Merima Bebre, was our opportunity, or there are more men who are employed as compared to women. So how do we think about, or how do we consider or solve the inequality aspect of it? That it will not only be for men that are employed, but women as well. And so as the population increases, we must think about how we can balance gender issues that can also help in that aspect. In terms of policy decisions for the statistics, I don't know if we should push this to the MNE. They are the one doing the statistics things. And I am connecting this to what, Mama, you said earlier about we are collecting data about children, about all the different age categories. And I think that we should begin to think of how we can utilize those data. Not necessarily for counting sake, knowing the numbers, but if we have this number of children between the ages of this, and this number of people within this youthful group, how can we also, in a way, have a demographic dividend from that? I think we should begin to think about that as a church. And population for evangelistic activities. Yes, when the numbers are increasing, it means that, like you said, me woman I am, and I'm here them, you're the bonieni. Not just that there are more sinners coming into the world. It means we must preach to them. It means that we must intensify our evangelism. And I think that the more population we have, the more we must evangelize to those over there. And Papa Lawete, the one that you saw about the child death is not necessarily just child death, it's lowering child death. So it's lowering birth and then lowering childbirth. I mean child death. The fact that we shouldn't have more children dying. We shouldn't have more children dying. And that one will sustain the population. Because already the TFR is declining. If we say that we should have more child death, then eventually the structure is going to change all too soon. But we must put things in place so that infant mortality and all those things, maternal mortality, all those things will have to reduce so that even the little number of children or number of children we're going to have can be sustained to rise up through the population bit. And then you were saying what policies can we put in place? And I think that already the government has done some things, but still it's management. Something like the free SHS. It's a very good idea. Something that gives room for everybody to be educated. Okay, but we know its challenges. And I think that if the government can also look at some of these things. So for us as a church, I remember from the communique that we wrote last year, we drew the president's attention to how it can be sustained. And I think that the church has played a role over there. One other thing is also the NHIS, which is something that is good for parents and for children. Children are registered for free. Or let me say infants are registered for free. So some of these policies, I think that can help to improve on that. So in terms of health, in terms of education, these two are like some key things that the government can focus on. And for us as a church already, we also have schools, we have hospitals, and it means that we are also playing parts, which is something that is good. Those are the questions that I could capture. I don't know if that is all.
Okay, thank you, Papa. Mine is not a question, but a contribution on our advocacy on abstinence. I remember somewhere in, I think 98 or 99, when I was quite younger than this, there was this advocacy on abstinence. And I remember very well there was a kind of debate in schools, and it was being championed by the Catholics. You know, the Catholics and their position on the use of contraceptives. And the slogan was, "Tractor kobampo pai, na condom." So to let us, the younger ones, know that even with condom, you are not safe enough. it can burst. And the very thing that you fear, you can easily come into it. So why don't you abstain and be safe? And these were something that went on in the secondary schools at that time. There were a lot of debates and a lot of essay competitions and around. And I think it did a lot of good to some of us. So for our youth coordinators who want to, if you have to champion this on, what do we call it, abstinence, as far as population issues are concerned, probably the department can also couch some interesting ideologies that will help our young ones appreciate why they need to abstain with just simple slogans, and I'm sure it will be able to go down for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Papa Chair. Mine too is also a contribution to add to the reduction in the fertility rate. I think one of the causes of the fertility decline can be attributed to modernization in farming. In the olden days, people marry and give birth to help them in farming activities. But these days, farming, we use mechanization. And for that matter, that mentality is no more. And it can also be attributed to rural-urban migration. People have migrated from the rural communities to the cities, and that is also a cause of the fertility decline. Thank you.
Thank you so much. You have to ask someone to run the vote of thanks. My sister, can you do that for us? You thank our doctor for us. Doc, we say God bless you for sharing with us. You can have your seat. God bless you so much.
Once again, we thank the Almighty God for another wonderful morning. I know we've all been enlightened, and one thing I've also learned is that no matter what, still God first in everything. Because I saw the young ones were so much interested in the things that we hear in our environment in contradicting to what the Bible actually talks. So I know we've all been enlightened, and we've taken something from here that we are going to share in our various presbyteries. Doctor, we want to say God bless you so much for this enlightenment. We say may God bless you and equip your knowledge. And we who were able to sit down to listen to, God bless all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. God bless you for thanking our doctor for us. We'll permit.
Me itabia mi krama to koso na menitra o koni mi mo afo mi srabo sentai me ko echakatama madeja no so didimi chiremokwa famitebonyo misrewo sendai meko ejakatama madeja no so jijimi chiremopa famise ebunyo misrewo sendai and I may go ejaka katama madeja no so yeswe jijimi chire emoka famise emono mehit amia midimi mikrama to koso na me